All right, hey everybody, thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm Jonathan Everts, and I am one of 4 school counselors here. We also have Mr. Ferguson, Mr. Kroll, and Ms. E. Moore. You can see the alpha here. Hopefully everybody knows their counselor by now. We also have 2 CCC coordinators, Hannah and Erica, who are over here. And I think that one of them will be kind of giving a push to you about the CCC. Before that, though, I just want to give an extra shout out to all the seniors here who have already heard us do presentations, and many of you have already met with us. So if you guys stop at the house now, this gets mentioned right place. Okay, so I'm going to let Hannah give this information, and I'll be back.
Hey everyone, my name is Hannah. I am one of the coordinators in the Career and College Center alongside my co-coordinator, Erica, who's right there. We are in room 107, right by door 10. You can't miss us, we're on the right-hand side. We are open Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We do a lot of different things, one of them being supporting students in figuring out where to go to college, what they want to major in, the application process, financial aid, scholarships, all of that, but ultimately just to create some sort of post-secondary plan. I know all of us are kind of here because it is college planning night, but we also focus on gap years, military, workforce, apprenticeship, short-term training, and all of that. We are home to a lot of college access networks such as Upward Bound, Project Success, Genesis Works, Step Up. Biggest piece of advice, read the newsletters that we send out. It has a lot of different information in there. And also check out our Washburn CCC website that also is like the home to all of the info that we are kind of setting forth. One really quick plug is in our CCC, we have a ton of rep visits that come and share about their school, program, or opportunity. Washburn has been really showing up this year. We've had 50 people come to 2 different U of M rep visits. We had 50 people go to the Colorado College visit. We've had a lot of different students showing up for all of those different schools. You can sign up for them in Naviance, and if you don't know how to do that, students, you can always stop in the CCC. So just make sure you're checking out what schools or what programs are coming and sign up, show an interest, engage with that opportunity, ask questions. And I'm going to pass it to Mr. Pemberton.
All right, I am back. So, a main point of this presentation, and I will mention this is going to be about 10 minutes, so it'll be very condensed and kind of gloss over a few things, but the main point of this presentation is just to kind of demystify the whole college application process because it can be overwhelming. I've been doing this for a long time now, and I can't imagine just all the information that people get, that students and families get. I hear some things and I'm like, where did you hear that from? That's not accurate. So we're hoping to kind of simplify things because it is not as complicated as it kind of appears at first glance. And we kind of boil this down to 8 steps. And just an ultra simplified version, kind of from square one to go into a college that you want to. And then kind of quickly go through all these steps. And that's kind of the whole point of this. And then after this, we're going to have some breakout sessions, as you guys are aware, we can get more information about specific topics. The first thing that we do that we remind students about is just getting organized and starting to figure out what exactly it is you want to do. If you want to go to college, what kind of college you want to go to, a 2-year or 4-year. Geography, where do you want to go to that college? What are interests of yours? What are priorities for you? Just reminding students about their resources. We have the CCC, we have counselors, we have different services online that students can use to kind of figure out and filter and find a good match for colleges. But the bottom line, and the thing that we want to stress above all is there's no such thing as like a good college or a bad college, right? It's the one that fits you. Students, wherever they go, as long as they kind of put a lot of effort into that college, we see them do great things afterward, regardless of where it is. So sometimes people get a little hung up on that, and I just want to remind you, like, it's more about what you do while at that college. So finding a good fit is so important. Once you kind of have, feel a little grounded, that's when we start having people kind of create a list. One that kind of fits your criteria of what you want. And people have different priorities for that, but it's kind of we recommend a list of about 5 to 7 schools typically. And typically, one thing we recommend for students is to have kind of an assortment of a couple reach schools, so ones that are selected, and they could be reached academically or they could be reached financially. Because sometimes these expensive private colleges you hear about, sometimes they give a lot of merit-based aid, and sometimes they end up being comparable to a University of Minnesota. So we always say, do not apply to a college because you think you can't afford it, because you never know what they might offer you. We always say apply to a couple possible schools, and that is where you kind of fit the average criteria of who gets in that school. And then a couple likely schools or safety schools where you are above kind of the average profile of who gets in, so you feel pretty good about that one. One thing we always recommend too is having at least one school in the state of Minnesota. I know sometimes students are not as excited about that, but just because sometimes when things kind of boil down in May, sometimes people realize for whatever reason that they do need to be home or want to be around here. So we always recommend at least one Minnesota school. Other things to keep in mind when you're creating your college list and finding like what is a reach school, what is a safety school, those things. The big things that schools look at, the number one criteria is GPA. That's above and beyond, especially now with ACT being an option in a lot of schools. A lot of them look for your GPA in the courses you have taken. They also look at class rank. We go by decile here. And then other subjective things, rigor of courses, activities, diversity, different things like that. So these are all kind of things to kind of keep in mind as you're creating your list. One of our favorite tools we have here, we have these scattergrams, and this is on Naviance. You can see information from Washburn students who have applied to specific schools, and it's just from Washburn students. So this one, I think is, I forget what school this is, but we have about 1,000 schools in this database. Some schools have had like 1,200 applications to. You can kind of see on this one, for example, the green check marks are people who got in that school based off their ACT and GPA. Those blue bubbles are kind of unknowns or waitlists, and then the red X's are denied. So that can kind of help you also narrow down what is a likely school, what is a safety school, what is a reach school. And then once you have your list, and it could be a tentative list, but once you have some colleges down, the next step is to start the college applications. There's different deadlines to keep in mind, and we always remind students when we meet with them about those different deadlines. The one you hear a lot about, people kind of mix up sometimes, is early action and early decision. So early action, that is the one that we always strongly encourage people to do whenever possible. Early action just simply means you apply by an earlier deadline than the regular deadline, meaning you hear back sooner, and sometimes you have a better chance of getting more financial aid and a better chance of getting in. So we always recommend whenever there's an early action or priority deadline, do those. Early decision is a binding contract, so if a student is interested in that, we kind of double check that A, they can afford that school if they get in it, because it is a binding contract, so to make sure that you have those resources, and then that it's a school you for sure want to go to no matter what. Regular deadline is just kind of when you have to apply by, and then some schools have rolling admissions, so you just kind of apply whenever throughout the year. A lot of state schools have rolling admissions, but even with those, we still recommend you apply earlier, just to hear back sooner. When you apply to colleges, you can apply, almost for every college, you can always apply straight through their college websites. And sometimes, in some cases, that's easier than other applications, such as the Common App. The Common App is pretty big now. I know most students I've met with right now have the Common App accounts. Just know it's not required. But if you're applying to more than a couple of schools that use Common App, it can end up saving time. There's over 800 schools that use the Common App, just in the United States alone, and almost all Minnesota schools except for the state schools use Common App. So it does take time, but it does take some time in the front end. It takes about 1 to 2 hours to kind of put everything in there. And then you start your applications. Sometimes students are like, so what do I do? It's like, well, you just apply now. So you just finish those applications. Make sure you kind of double check your grammar, make sure you double check your punctuation and things like that. We always recommend to have a boring email address also, if you're using an email address for the admissions contacts. Sometimes an essay is required, especially if you're using Common App. Common App has you just do some kind of general prompts, and then sometimes schools also want another essay on top of that, like why medicine. We have a really good resource here, Ms. Menet. She's a writing coordinator amongst other things at Washburn, and she will be doing a couple sessions tonight. But she kind of helps students from point A to point B. So kind of in the beginning, if they just need help brainstorming about what is a good thing to write about, or if they just want some fine tuning or something to look things over, she is a super good resource. And her information is on this thing. One new thing that Washburn will be doing this year, we are piloting a direct admissions program. It's through the state of Minnesota, and what we will be doing is we'll be sending GPAs of all the seniors, unless you opt out, to the state of Minnesota, and they are going to be sending an email to each individual student saying, congrats, you got into these schools. You don't have to apply yet. But if you want to end up going to one of those schools that you got directly admitted to, then you need to apply by a certain date, but they do waive the fee. So it's kind of this new feature, it's kind of nice. It's just based on GPA. If you are not eligible for direct admission, so if you get that email and a college that you want to go to has not accepted you, it does not mean you are not eligible for it. It just means you are not automatically accepted, so you can still apply to that. So students will be getting an email soon about that, kind of with more information. But I just want to give you guys a heads up about that. All right, so after you have applied to colleges, and you can do this sometimes before, but every senior here needs to meet with their counselor. Amongst other things, one thing we do is we are the ones who put transcripts into the Naviance account, and we send transcripts to the different colleges students are applying to. So students cannot send transcripts. The counselor has to do that. And if a student applies to a school, we are not notified unless that student tells us. So make sure you remind everybody to let us know when you apply to the school. We also send school profile, a Common App school report. If a student needs a letter of recommendation, we kind of double check that they do need it, and then we're the ones who upload the teacher name into Naviance so that they can send that letter of recommendation to those colleges. If you do need a letter of recommendation, also, students, I know you guys know this, but just make sure you give at least 2 weeks to those teachers, preferably 4 weeks, because it does take a lot of time to do them. Once you have applied to the school, the next step is sending ACT or SAT scores, maybe, right? Because it kind of depends now. It used to be required up until COVID, now it is optional at most schools. It starts to get a little tricky though, because there's this game where it is optional, but sometimes it's still recommended to send it. And sometimes students are like, should I send it if I have like a certain score? And we can kind of help students work through that, but it's not always super cut and dry. But generally, as a rule of thumb, what we recommend is if your ACT score is kind of around the average, the person who gets into that school, we say send it every single time, because otherwise they might assume it's a little bit lower. And if it's lower, depending on how much lower it is, we might say hold off, or maybe it's not worth it, or maybe it'd be better just to have them look at your transcript and other things like that. And then if it's above it, you say always send it, because it can help. After you've applied to these schools, it's just kind of your job to just double check that the school has got those applications. Most of these schools have a portal that you can kind of log into and just kind of see the status and make sure that nothing is missing with those. And if anything kind of goofy happens, you can check with your counselor or the CCC. If you are applying to the University of Minnesota, there's 3 different ways you can apply. The Golden Gopher app, Common App, or the Coalition for Access. It's $55. You'll be getting more information about the event if you go to session 1 coming up. So after you've done all that, the FAFSA is the next step. That is where people get federal aid from. So even if you do not think you will get any aid from the government, we still recommend doing the FAFSA because that is also where you can get student loans from. And even if you don't think you'll qualify for student loans, sometimes colleges will use FAFSA information when they're kind of giving what they're going to give you out, or what kind of aid they're going to give you. So we recommend everybody does the FAFSA, even if you don't think it's required. And that opens up on October 1st. And step 8, we're already step 8. Step 8 is applying for scholarships. Keep in mind, most scholarships come from the institution you are applying to. About 90% of scholarships come from that institution, especially private schools. They give a lot of merit-based aid. However, there are a lot of scholarships here that students can apply for, and we'll be giving more information to seniors. Scholarship season, we call it, kind of ramps up usually in winter time, and we start going to classrooms and kind of giving heads up about what is available and what is out there. But you can always pop in CCC and they can meet with you and kind of let you know, here's what's available, here's what's coming up, here's what we recommend you apply for, here's the ones you have the best chance of getting. And they have a list of kind of more local and specialized scholarships, which students have a better chance of getting than some of those national ones. Okay, so this is just a quick senior year timeline. There's another ACT coming up. Let's see if that's in here. I think that might have been taken up. But there's an ACT coming up in October. I think you have like another week to apply for that. There's a late fee. November 1st is kind of when the first early action deadlines come up. We have a financial aid workshop on November 15th. There's another ACT on December 10th. That starts getting a little bit late if you plan on using that score for colleges, but some colleges have January deadlines to apply by, so that could be there. And yes, graduation is June 12th. All right, so a lot of information. Thank you guys for listening. Again, thank you seniors for hearing this again. So next up, we'll be having breakout sessions. There's going to be 3 separate breakout sessions, 6:30 to 6:55, 7 to 7:25, and 7:30 to 8. All these sessions are labeled on here. A few things to know though. The college essay writing is only available for session 1 and 2, and the U of M session is only session 1 here in the auditorium. So after that, she will be leaving. You can go to one session or you can go to all 3. It's completely up to you guys. So that is it. Thank you guys for listening. Question? Yes? Yeah, this entire presentation is on the counseling website under parent presentations. Yes. All right, thanks guys, I'll let you get to it.